Welcome to this episode of End of Life Conversations. I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews.
And I'm the Reverend Mother, Ana Luisa Armendariz. In this podcast, we share people's experiences with death and dying, grief and loss, and the end of life.
Every episode, we are so honored and blessed to share stories with amazing, compassionate, and wise guests. So let's get started.
We are so happy to be talking with Rosanne Corcoran today. She is a creator and host of Daughterhood the Podcast. She is also a Daughterhood Circle leader and their director of content. She cared for her mother through her 12-year journey with vascular dementia, starting as a supportive caregiver to an in-home sandwich caregiver for her mother's final 6 years. Rosanne hosts a monthly podcast where she interviews experts in the field, asking questions caregivers want to know the answers to, with topics ranging from dealing with dementia behaviors to siblings and caregiving through end-of-life care, grief, and everything in between.
Rosanne carries her authenticity and caregiving experience into each interview. Along with strategies and resources, her podcast also provides listeners with the comfort of knowing they're not facing these challenges alone. Her podcast has consistently been named as a top 10 caregiver podcast, and Rosanne has been featured in CNN Health, Barron's, Next Avenue, and was most recently named one of Next Avenue and American Society on Aging's 2024 Advocates for Aging. Wow, very impressive.
Very impressive.
Really love that you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to ask before we
Sure.
start, what is a sandwich caregiver?
Sandwich caregiver.
Because that was in there. I was like, what? What is that?
It's someone who's caring for both their parents and their children. So you're in the sandwich. You're the meat of the sandwich. You're the middle of the sandwich.
Right. Yeah. And so many of us are doing
right.
that these days.
Yes.
And, you know, I've called myself many times because I'm Italian and a panini, you know, panini sandwich.
I love it.
Yeah.
The panini caregiver. I'm going to hold that one for sure. Thanks so much for being with us today, Rosanne.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you and all you do. I've enjoyed your podcast, and I hope we will certainly put a link, and I hope our listeners will get a chance, especially those of us who are or have been or will be caregivers. It's really important.
Thank you.
We like to begin these podcasts with a question about, when did you first become aware of death?
Let me think. Two of my grandparents died when I was under 10, and my maternal grandmother died at 50, which was, you know, really young then, right? And I always felt that grief when my mother and her sisters would talk about her because she had died so young. And then, you know, I had a classmate pass in my sophomore year of high school, but the biggest experience was a few days before my 17th birthday. My father died, and he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 weeks prior to that. And the doctor said, you have 2 weeks to live. And it was 2 weeks. So it was pretty shocking, to say the least. Yeah.
Talk about a death awareness, like, boom, there you are right there.
Yep. Absolutely.
So based on that experience in your formative years, how has death impacted your life story?
Well, it was a couple of things, because it showed me that your life can change in an instant, right? And you're not guaranteed anything. So when people are like, you know, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, and it's like, that's wonderful. But for me, I always had that 2-week turnaround in my head because it was out of the blue. You know, while he wasn't feeling well, we didn't think it was that. Do you know, that was so shocking and such a tragedy at that point, because he was 58. So it was, you know, it was totally unexpected. So it was that fragility of life. And it made me realize, you know, you have to tell people that are important to you that they're important to you. And you have to really honor the relationships that you have, because you don't know when the last time you're going to speak to somebody is. It doesn't matter what age they are, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. You just never know. And it also made me fearful then of losing my mom. And that kind of just carried through.
So important to think about that, to be aware of that every day.
Yeah.
We have a quote from the Dalai Lama: every day as we wake up, we are fortunate.
Yeah.
We remember how fortunate we are. So, and remember to tell our beloveds how much they mean to us, and forgiveness every day too, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Rosanne, when
Yeah.
with those last 2 weeks that you experienced with your father, like, did he talk about passing, or did anybody say anything about what was going on?
No, in fact, he didn't want us to know. So when he was released from the hospital, they told him, but he didn't tell us, and he wasn't going to tell us. And this was back, we're talking, almost 40 years ago now, 1984. It was before HIPAA. And his doctor actually went to my brother's place of business and told him.
Whoa.
And then my brother came to tell us. And my father was none too happy that he did.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there was no conversation about it, no.
Yeah. So I want to hold a little space for that story too, because your dad wanted agency to be ending his days as normal as possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I feel like there is a place for that, but it also leaves family members feeling deep woundedness around not being told what was going on. So yeah, I think I feel for both sides of you, actually.
Yeah, well, and it was interesting also because people wanted to come see him then. And my grandmother came with one of my aunts, and one of my uncles came. And after that, he said no more, and he didn't want to see anybody. And I often wonder about that. The pain from that side of seeing people. And we have this thing where when you find out somebody's ill, you want to go see them. And it's such a strange thing for me because I get that. But then there's that other flip in my mind, like, well, do you think they don't know that they're important to you? Like, have you not conveyed this before? Like, I get it. I understand it. But I actually witnessed that in real time where it was too painful for him. He just couldn't hear it and receive that. He just couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating thought, that maybe that's selfishness in a way on our part, that we think it's important for us to go see them and we want to make sure they know we love them. But is that really what's best for them or what they want?
Yeah.
So good question to ask and good thing to check in with folks about.
Well, and it reminds me of a story that I read maybe about 10 years ago, and I can't at the moment place where it was, but it was about a mom who was dying, and she and her husband had small children, and they opted to not do all the, chemo and radiation and whatnot. But what they did was they rented a house in southern Colorado, and they spent the summer like telling people, oh yeah, we got this place. You should come and like hang out and go camping and play around. And there was this image that I will never forget where the kids were running in and out of the house, and she was kind of set up on the couch in the living room. And death came in the most quotidian of ways, like with the world and everything just kind of like ebbs and flow of the day caressing her. And they were very happy. They were like, this is what we want, just this naturalness. Because if they had announced that she was really sick, then everybody would have been clamoring to be right over her and watching and like doing this. But instead, she could just witness it without anybody being like upset, which I feel like that was a really beautiful story for me. So I kind of want to be like, oh, like if people want to say, I don't want to tell my loved ones, then what does it look like? How do you frame it so that the wounding doesn't happen to them when you disappear, essentially?
Right. No, right. It's so true. And that's really a beautiful story. I thank you for sharing that because, we also get caught up in the medical world will treat you forever.
Forever.
They'll just keep going. And they're very hesitant to say, I don't know if this is really going to bring anything to your life.
Correct.
They're very, even when in your own mind, you're like, ooh, really, should we be doing this? We're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep going. And I think everyone gets caught up in that. Well, we want to try everything and we want to do everything, but they don't have the understanding of what that really means. And I think it causes a lot of pain at end of life that we don't necessarily have to experience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And again, this is the work that Atul has done. I can't remember his last name right now, but he's the one whose dad had cancer. And he said, the two things I want to do is have an ice cream and watch my football games.
Yes.
And so every single time that he had doctor's visits for his dad, he would ask him, will he be able to eat ice cream and sit up? And the final time was that the man was like, he needs to be like fed through the tube in his stomach, and he probably won't want to sit up. And he's like, well, I guess we're done right here. We are completely done with all the services because now my dad's wishes will no longer be available to us. So
yeah. It's important to be very clear on that.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about dementia, and I just visited a friend who's deep in dementia at this point. And I think it was your podcast where I heard someone saying about the being present with somebody in dementia is a really good practice of patience and silence and being willing to be in that space. But I wonder, as we're talking about this, again, is this another place where people are kind of warehoused in a state of dementia where they're no longer really with us? They don't know what's going on. They don't know who's there, who's not there. And they could be there for years. And, the elder industrial complex is very happy to completely suck up every penny they have until they run out and then go to welfare or Medicare. So I wonder about your thoughts on that. I mean, that's just something that, having visited this person this weekend, it's really front of mind.
Yeah. It's, I know that people get hung up with do they remember you? I would have people say to me, does your mom remember you? And I would say, sometimes yes, and sometimes no, but it doesn't matter because she can feel the love that I'm giving her. She knows that I'm with her. And it's not about those things. It's about your connection. And it's always wonderful to bring a story. You tell them who they are and who you are with them. I'm Rosanne and I'm your daughter and I love you so much. And we used to ... You bring the story. And even if they don't know who you are in those moments, they're looking at you and they're seeing your reflection. You're reflecting their love back to them. And that's how you make the connection. And while it may be painful for you, okay, but you're bringing this to them. You're including them in your world, in their world that they just happen not to remember. Okay, they don't remember. I mean, if you had a friend with a broken leg, would you say, well, we always used to jog, so now I guess we can't be friends? I mean, it's like, we can still make those connections. And I strove to make those connections with my mother because it was important and because she was my mom. And I wasn't going to let her just feel like she was floating somewhere. It was important to me to make that connection. So it's hard, and it's I'll go back. It's Medicaid that pays for everything when you run out of money because Medicare won't pay for anything, which is what also causes so much strife when you're caregiving. But it's important, and I know that it's uncomfortable at times, and there were times when I would be talking to my mother and we'd be having a great conversation, and she would say, "Can I ask you a question?" And I'd say, "Sure." And she'd say, "When's Rosanne coming home?" And I was like, "Oh." And, okay. But while we were talking, she was happy. She was happy. She knew she was safe and all of that. So it's our discomfort and discomfort, discomfort goes with end of life, right? Discomfort goes with death. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to talk about it because it makes us feel unsettled and it makes us uncomfortable. But there's no way around it. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So well put. Thank you.
It's so beautiful. And I also want to add that, sometimes when you're with people who are not family members who have dementia and they're behaving in ways that others around them are like, oh, they're just cranky. And there's a lot of projection too. Like, they're not doing something right. Like, stop to gather a little information for their benefit, right? So I used to do lay Eucharist visitor. I used to go and give communion to folks. There was a beautiful woman who was in an Alzheimer's place, and I really got irritated when the nursing staff would say, "Oh, she's just been so cranky today. She's so cranky. Blah, blah, blah." And it sucks to be stuck. So I would show up and I would ask her, like, "Do you want to pray? Do you want to read scripture?" And that would always give her such settledness. I'd walk out, I'm like, "She's fine." So having an uncomfortable moment, but then being curious enough to find out where a connection can be made. I think that's so important. And just the same as people who are at the end of life. I'm uncomfortable, but, I'm going to sit with you and tell you about, what's outside the window or what I remember or whatever. But if it's okay to be uncomfortable and ask questions.
Exactly. Because it could be, maybe they have pain. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they're thirsty. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom. There's 1,000 different things, but you have to be curious enough to want to know what it is instead of just writing it off.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So well put. Thank you. Well, this is a great time to ask about the podcast and really what your work is now. I'd love to hear the story of how this came about and what's your purpose?
So I moved my mother in with us in 2015, and I was looking for support, and I couldn't find the support that I was looking for. And I found Daughterhood, and I thought if there was ever a time when I could start a circle, I was going to do so. And 3 years later, I was able to, 3 years later, I was able to. And I started a circle, and we would meet. I would meet with these women. All of the groups I was finding were meeting at 7:00. You cannot go out of the house at 7:00 when you are a dementia caregiver. It does not work. So I made this group at noon on a Friday, and we would gather, all the caregivers would gather, and it didn't matter what they were caring for, what disease, what condition, what person they were caring for. We all were having the same issues. It wasn't just finding information about how to do things practically, how to manage medications, how to figure all of this out. How am I getting from point A to point B? It wasn't just all of that. It was, I really love my person. I just don't know I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to deal with these feelings. How can I feel so bad knowing that I'm doing this great thing, but I'm feeling it? I don't know how to deal with this. And even with people that didn't like their care partners, how they were going to deal with it. So it was just deeper. And the more we would meet, and I kept hearing these same things, and I thought, nobody is talking about this. What is happening? So I approached Daughterhood and I said, I would love to start this podcast. And it was November of 2019 was when I started. And I wanted to ask these professionals and these experts and these caregiver advocates about these questions, and not just ask the question and have them answer and go, "Okay, great, thank you." But to say, and when that doesn't work, what do I do? Yeah. If I've tried this and I still feel like this, what am I supposed to do with this? Because I need to survive this. While I'm providing this care, which is very important to me, I also have to be able to survive it, to be on the other side, to then go back into my life that, by the way, will look completely different by that time, because your life keeps moving even though it's on hold. So everybody around you is moving forward. And when I moved my mom into my house, it was my oldest was a senior in high school and my youngest was in 8th grade. And when she passed, my oldest was in grad school and my youngest was a sophomore in college. These times, time keeps going. So I used to record in my walk-in closet. I'd go in my closet and I'd talk to everybody there. And I knew that I could do one a month, because I knew that would give me enough time to research and, if I had to read a book or whatever, and come up with these questions. But I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be real life. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to some really incredible people along the way. And it's helped me. And it's helped the listeners, which is really what it's all about, which I'm thrilled about. I mean, it's an honor for me. truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been our experience as well with this podcast stuff. It's been just one blessing after another to meet these incredible people who are doing this work and who are willing to share their stories.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for that.
Sure.
That's so important. Yeah.
So in this project, what are you finding are your biggest challenges?
Well, so it's, it's dual for me because I'm doing the podcast and I'm also a Daughterhood Circle leader. So creating new circles to address the topics that the caregivers need. So I try to, we've added 2 grief circles to our repertoire. We have caregiver coaches that are leaders. We have our regulars of like caregiving 101, like where to start and what to do. And then we have these other topics. We have a lot of question and answers that come in so that people can actually ask these experts questions because, it's helpful. So the challenges are, they're different in each area, but I guess the main thing is trying to get that information out to caregivers because, let's face it, there's not enough time in the day. You just...
Yeah, it is really hard to like help people when they are in the trough, right?
Yes.
They're just like, I can have all the emails coming to me. I can have all the flyers on my front door, but I literally physically cannot read or pick up the paper right now.
No. It's so hard. And that's the thing. So when it comes to really trying to deliver that and meet it's another, I always say in dementia caregiving, you have to meet them where they are, right? It's the same thing with caregivers. You have to meet them where they are and you have to be able to provide something to them that they can access. It's not, you can't give fluff. Fluff isn't going to work. You gotta, you have to find a way to get that information and go, here you go. This is what you've been looking for. And you can take it and run. Yeah. And that's the hard part.
And, it's kind of interesting you say that because I'm thinking right now 3 different situations that I've heard about in the last 2 months. And it's somebody who's really sick and a caregiver is like, I need to find help. And, I have somebody who's been texting me and he's like, I only get 3 hours of sleep a night. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I have a lot of caregiving to do and I need help. Where do I go? And the good news is some families have family and church support, but there are so many who don't. So where do you intersect with them with this information that they can actually say, oh, thank the goddess, right? Like I'm going to call right now because I need help.
Right. Well, it is the biggest problem is that the system is broken and we're all trying to work in this system that doesn't work for us. And that's what makes it doubly hard because we have, Medicare doesn't talk about long-term care. They don't pay for long-term care. They don't pay for a caregiver. They don't even pay for adult daycare. That could be such a huge service and could extend the time that people can live at home before they need to be placed someplace because, caregivers still are working and you're still trying to figure it out. So there are local resources like the area agencies on aging that are in every community, but they're all based off of money. It's all how much money they have. So it's this continual circle and it's not the same as caring for children. And people seem to think that sometimes, it's like daycare. No, it's not like daycare. It's different. These are adult people. They have full lives. They're fully formed. It's like when people would say, well, you should sleep when your mother sleeps. It's not like when you have a baby. It does not work this way. So it's hard. It's just hard. And I always say, you check your churches, you check your area places. If there's a nursing school around you and you can call there and see if they have people that need hours, because nurses in nursing school, you always need hours, those types of things. And you have to expand your net. And it's hard because a lot of times you would think that people would run to you. Like, what do you need? And it doesn't always work that way because they think, well, you have it. Or they'll ask me. And caregivers don't even know what they're asking for because they're so overwhelmed and they're so just stressed out. And there's so many things. It's like, how do I label this? What do I need today? And what I need today might change tomorrow. So that's the biggest problem. And then since COVID, prices for caregivers has gone through the roof. So it's really something needs to change in a hurry for all of us, for caregiving.
I was going to say, just I don't think that the system is broken. I think it's meant to break us, right? It's not really that interested in any humanness about it. And I think about that because I have a lot of conversations about education and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, the system is actually not broken. It's doing what it's supposed to do, make money.
Right.
Right. So we need to.
Oof, that's a good point.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's that elder industrial complex we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's really true. It's even hospice, is business. It's a business.
Yeah, it
has to make money, and it's sad. Often, to the people working in hospice as well, can be really, really difficult because people come into hospice to work in hospice as compassionate, loving, caring people, and they're quickly beaten into make money or leave.
Yes,
which is really a sad commentary on our current world.
It is, and hospice is so important, and that support through hospice is so important. And it's just not. It's definitely changed.
What kind of things help you feel supported in your work?
In my work.
Well, and in life.
Yeah, I was going to say in general.
In general.
Well, I mean, professionally, it's the thing that supports me, and it might sound counterintuitive, but is to let people know that it's okay that you're feeling this way. It's okay that you're not doing it wrong. There is no wrong here. It's, of course you feel like this. It's overwhelming, and it's isolating, and it's just stressful, and it's emotional, and that type of thing. And it's hard. So I also find comfort and resources from people like the two of you that I can listen to and say, yep, okay, this makes sense. Like I'm one of those people, I have to learn about it. I have to learn it. I've got to absorb it. And then I can share it. And I've been fortunate enough to talk with really fantastic people that help me along the way. And then I like to turn around and throw it back out the door. Like, this helped me. Maybe it would help you. Maybe there's a few nuggets here, Personally, for me, it's nature. Really.
We like that.
Number one
it's
answer.
Amazing.
It really is.
It's really, when I was caregiving and they'd be like, go outside and stand in the grass, take your shoes off. I'd be like, okay, yeah, all right, that's going to help me. How exactly is that going to help me? And boy, do I wish I would have listened to that. But it's to be able to go out and look at the trees and look at the sky and the grass. And I know that it sounds so like, out there, like that's not going to, take a deep breath and stand and look at the trees. It will help you. I promise you, it will help you. But that really helps me a lot. And I found it just by accident, really, like, okay, well, maybe I should take somebody's advice on this and try it. So I do. I mean, and of course, talking with my husband or my dearest friends and that kind of thing, that's all recharging. And I think sometimes we think it's so little, and it's really not little. It's a big deal. And these things can really help you. And breathing, I walked around with my shoulders as earrings for 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, and I didn't breathe. I was a shallow breather. And it's just different when you allow yourself to be in that world. It really opens it up.
I love that. It's so true and so real.
You're part of our circle.
It's so forgotten. Yeah.
Thank you.
It can be forgotten that we depend on that.
Yeah.
And as caregivers, as end-of-life workers, we need to do that to bring our whole selves.
Yeah.
To really be present with people. We need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And I would also offer that nature revitalizes our hearts and our minds and our bodies because it's also going through the similar processes that we are. Like, there are plants who are dying, there are trees who are dying, and then there's young roots who are shooting up and turning. Like, the circle of life is so right in our faces.
Yes.
And maybe intellectually we're not actually capturing that and saying, oh yeah, like I see you. But somehow that's also coming into ourselves and making it like, you're okay, you're held. This is normal. We're going to get through this. We've been around a while. It's okay. Like,
Yeah, I fully agree.
I've heard it called the intrinsic hope of the dandelion that sends off its things, right? Or the salmon that goes upstream.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we're so blessed with that resource. Thanks for reminding us of that.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so what are your fears about the end of life?
I mean, aside from death, actually.
Are you afraid of dying?
Well, it's not, it's, I think for me, and I've really thought about this, and I think it's the speed of it. Do you know, the actual, wait, it's now? Is this what's happening?
Wait.
Hang on a second. Really? We're here?
Funny.
So that.
Yeah.
It's that. Mm-hmm. You know, like, what's going on?
I know, but I mean, a joke around here is I'm always like, I'm already dying. It's happening. It's happening.
No, I know. And I listen, I know that it's that double, it's almost like the two sides of the coin, right? We know that there's more. We know there's more. You know, I am Catholic in our view, right? There's a heaven. There's more. There's more than just where we are right now. And I believe that. And then there's that other side that's like, yeah, but what about everybody else? What happens? Like, I'm not going to be here. What are they? You know, it's the Italian mother in me, right? So it's that double edge. And you think about it and you're like, yeah, no, I know. And I know it from things I've experienced. I know it from things that I've seen and what I believe. And so it's like, that's okay. But then there's that other piece. And I don't know how to reconcile those two sides. And I'm wondering if it's getting back into my spiritual side more, because when my mother couldn't go to church anymore, I stopped going to church because I felt horrible that she couldn't go. And it was so important to her. And we used to watch Mass on TV, and that's fine. And after she passed, I found it to be too emotional to go. I made it to the back. I never made it past the back. And I still haven't made it past the back. And I know that there's a key there for me. And I have to get there. I haven't gotten there yet. But I acknowledge that I haven't gotten there yet, and it's a work in progress. But I think that would be helpful to try to step back into that. And I wonder if, I should, I don't know, start reading things while I'm sitting in nature. Maybe that would help. I don't know how to breach that wall yet.
Yeah. Well, I hope I'm going to offer you this. There's no shoulds.
Mm-hmm. No. Mm-mm.
And that spiritual component for you doesn't have to be through that portal of a church and making it past the last pews.
Yeah.
And in fact, just by saying that, maybe God will actually surprise you and meet you on the front steps of the church.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So enjoy the journey.
Or next to the tree that's outside.
Exactly. Exactly. That would be great. I would love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But it is nice to hear that perhaps leaning into the spiritual component that has been a part of your story, it might be a way to assuage some of this "it's going too fast" kind of fear. And so many of us go through those kind of things. So you're not alone.
Thank you.
That's for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's that thing too, right? Like, we're all learning and getting rid of things and picking things up and dropping them off.
Yeah.
This whole thing.
One step at a time.
Yep.
Yeah. One breath at a time.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we've gone pretty well through everything. Is there anything you wish we had asked you that you'd still like to tell us about?
No, I mean, I just wish people were more open to talking about this, more open about talking about end of life. And I mean, it's really the only thing that we all have in common that there's no getting out of. And I know that probably adds to the fear, but in discussing it and in talking, and it's something that I found through Daughterhood, actually, because, I'm Italian. We eat our feelings. We don't talk about our feelings, right? I can make you something. You're going to feel better. We don't need to talk about it. And that has really changed. And I found that in being open and talking to people about things, it doesn't make it scarier. It makes it more palatable. It makes it easier. It makes it more like it doesn't have the same power. The power that it holds isn't bad power. It's good power. And when you have that and you're able to reach that, it might not fix the problem or your issue, but it will make you feel better about the issue. And if more people understood that about end of life and death and dying and grief, it might feel a little lighter than as heavy as it is, because it's hard and nobody wants to talk about these things because, it's hard and nobody wants to see you sad. Oh, you're better now, right? You feel better. Well, it's been, it's been a while. Aren't you better? No. But that if I had a magic wand, I would want people to be okay with talking about it and being honest about how they feel. Because you're right. I mean, you said it earlier. A lot of times it's just projection. Whoop, don't want to talk about it because I don't want to talk about my grief is still here. My fears are still here. And I don't want to bring that up because I have them tucked into this nice little box and I don't want to open it. And it would be just so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. That's why we're here. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Absolutely.
Well, wonderful. You said you had a poem. Do you want to go ahead and share that with us?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Death is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland. I think that's going to be the one. Yeah, it's the one that's talking to me. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind? Because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just round the corner. All is well, nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again.
Whoa.
Beautiful.
Yep.
I like this whole notion of praying for them, even though they're not here. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Right?
I do like that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Speak their name. Speak their names. People, that's the one thing. People are afraid to bring it up. Oh, I didn't want to say anything about your mom because I didn't want you to feel bad. Gee, it's okay.
Tell us what that meant.
Yeah.
What she meant to you, how she touched you in life. Yeah, that's a much better solution than trying to ignore it or forget about it, or which isn't going to happen anyway.
No, but that's how you keep them with you. That's how you keep them alive. And it's one of those things I would love when people would see me and they'd say, "Oh, you're Rose's daughter." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they'd be like, "Oh, we love her." And I'm like, "Oh, me too." But it's that's how you keep them alive. And it's the one thing that I miss the most because, my mom was second youngest in her family and I was the youngest. I'm the youngest in my family. My mom had me at 40. So there were lots of people that have left us. And my mother was the last of her siblings. And, her friends, there's like a few left of them, but it's so different when you don't have that person that you know that's connected to them. You know, and it's such a big loss because it's not just them, it's their whole being, it's their whole interactions.
The whole story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much again. It's been a real pleasure.
A delight.
And we've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Same.
Thanks so much for joining us on the End of Life Conversations. We appreciate you and look forward to sharing our stories. Thanks to my daughter Lucero and Nico Rush, who have cheerfully assisted us as our editors and tech support. Additional resources, transcript of this episode, and links to our social media will be in the podcast notes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please subscribe, tell your friends, follow us on social media, and consider supporting us through Patreon. We want to acknowledge that the music we are using was composed and produced by Charles Heastand.